I want to tell you about a man I read about recently. 6 figures, good job, nice apartment, everything upgrading every time he got a raise, and every single month the same panic, checking his account at 2 a.m. Not because he was broke, because it never felt like enough. And I couldn't stop thinking about why. Because from the outside, this man had everything that was supposed to fix the money fear. More income, more stability, more proof that he made it, and the fear never left. So I started researching, and what I found disturbed me in a way I haven't been able to shake. Because here's what the data says. 78% of people report constant worry about their financial futures. Not 78% of poor people, 78% of people across every income level, every tax bracket, every salary range. And then I found something that broke the whole story I thought I understood about money. 51% of people earning under $20,000 feel financially anxious. Makes sense? 46% of people earning $60,000 to $80,000 feel financially anxious. Okay, still understandable. But then, 24% of people worth over $800,000 reported serious financial stress. Let that land. People worth almost $1 million still lying awake at night scared about money. This is not a money problem, this is something else entirely. If you have ever gotten a raise, you felt relief for about a week, then watch the fear quietly come back as if it had never left. This video is for you, because what is happening to you has a name. Once you understand it, everything changes. Let me take you back to a specific moment you have probably lived. You get the news, promotion, raise, more money, and for a moment, genuinely, it feels like relief, like something you have been carrying finally got lighter. You celebrate, maybe tell someone, maybe just sit with it for a quiet minute. Finally. And then 3 months pass, and you're checking your account with the same anxiety you had before. The number is bigger, the feeling is identical. I read about a woman who went from $45,000 to $95,000 in 2 years, doubled her income, and she told a researcher, "I thought I'd feel secure." She added, "I just feel like I have more to lose." That sentence stopped me. More to lose, not more to gain, not more freedom, more to lose. And there's a name for what happened to her. Psychologists call it the hedonic treadmill. Research first identified by Brickman, Coates and Yanoff-Bullman back in 1978. And it explains something that should change how you think about every financial goal you've ever set. Your brain neutralizes income increases within 3 to 6 months every single time. Not because you're ungrateful, not because you're greedy, because your brain is neurologically designed to establish a new baseline. And then treat that baseline as the new normal. So the $95,000 that felt like rescue became the new floor. And the anxiety found its new address and moved right back in. This is called hedonic adaptation. It doesn't care how hard you worked for the money. It doesn't care how long you waited. It just quietly resets and leaves you exactly where you started emotionally, with a bigger number and the same fear. And here's the research that confirms it. Kahneman and Deaton, Nobel Prize winning research, found that emotional well-being plateaus at roughly $60,000 to $75,000 in North America. Beyond that point, higher income no longer produces higher emotional satisfaction. It just produces higher expectations, higher lifestyle, higher fear of losing it. The treadmill just gets faster. Here's where it gets more disturbing, because most people think the solution is simple. Just save more, just spend less, just be more disciplined. But there's something happening in the background that most people never see coming. Researchers call it lifestyle inflation. And it works like this. Every time your income rises, your expenses rise to meet it. Not because you made a decision, because your brain made the decision for you. New income level arrives, new normal gets established. New expenses feel completely reasonable at the new level. And the numbers confirm this in a way that should disturb you. 44% of people earning over $100,000 live paycheck to paycheck, and some research puts that number even higher. 90% of high earners are still living paycheck to paycheck, not because they are irresponsible, because the treadmill accelerated with their income. I read about a man, software engineer making $180,000 a year, who couldn't explain where his money went every month. Nicer apartment, better car, better clothes, better everything. All of it felt completely normal, all of it felt completely justified. And at the end of every month, the same anxiety. The same checking, the same fear. even with $180,000 going in. Researchers have a name for this too: lifestyle creep. The invisible escalation of everything around you happens so gradually you never notice it, until you look back and realize you cannot remember what you spent it on. Here is the psychological mechanism underneath it all. Neuroscience research shows your brain does not process income increases as permanent gains. It processes them as temporary until the lifestyle adjusts, and then the gain disappears into the new normal. It's not a character flaw, it's a neurological prediction error. Your brain was never designed for this kind of money. It was designed for survival, and survival brains don't know what to do with abundance, so they manufacture new scarcity to replace the old. Here's the part I couldn't stop thinking about for days after I found it. For most of economic history, the people with the most money felt the most secure. Makes sense. That's how it's supposed to work. In 2026, that inverted, and the data is almost impossible to believe. The University of Michigan tracks consumer sentiment across income groups. For the first time in 47 years of data, the top third of earners are now more pessimistic about the economy than the bottom third. 47 years. The people with the most money, more scared than the people with the least, and the reason? Goldman Sachs research found that AI is eliminating 5,000 to 10,000 jobs every single month. But here's what's disturbing about which jobs. Not manual labor, not entry-level, white-collar jobs, high-paying jobs, the jobs people spent years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to qualify for. And the New York Federal Reserve found something that explains the panic at the top. The probability of finding a new job within 3 months, if laid off, is at its lowest reading since 2013. So high earners, for possibly the first time in their lives, are clinging to positions they spent years building, watching AI get better every single week, doing the math on how long they're actually safe. And the answer is terrifying them quietly, in meetings, in performance reviews, in the middle of the night when the number in their account suddenly feels like it could disappear faster than it arrived. That's the fear nobody at this income level is allowed to say out loud. Here's something I read that reframed everything I thought I understood about financial behavior. 70 to 80% of unplanned spending comes directly from emotional fatigue. Not from desire, not from greed, from being emotionally exhausted and reaching for something that feels like relief. A dinner you didn't plan, a purchase that made no sense, a subscription you forgot to cancel, a thing that felt necessary in the moment and meaningless 3 days later. Researchers call this emotional exhaustion spending. And it works like this. Your brain has a finite amount of decision-making energy. When that energy depletes, from stress, from overwork, from constantly performing competence, it reaches for the easiest dopamine available, which is almost always something that costs money. And here is the data that made this real for me. Higher financial worries produce higher psychological distress. And higher psychological distress produces worse financial decisions, which produce higher financial worries. It's a loop. Stress causes spending, spending causes stress, and again, stress causes spending. Around and around, while the income keeps going up, and the freedom never quite arrives. And researchers found something even darker underneath this. Psychologists call it scarcity mindset. When your mental energy is consumed by financial stress, your cognitive capacity for everything else actually diminishes. Decision quality drops, creativity drops, problem-solving drops. The very mental resources you need to fix the financial problem are depleted by the stress of having the financial problem, which means high earners experiencing financial anxiety are literally less capable of solving it, because the anxiety itself is consuming the cognitive tools they need. That's not weakness, that's the trap. I want to talk about something that makes all of this worse, much worse, and it is something you are probably doing right now without realizing it. 48% of people say comparing themselves to more successful peers causes serious anxiety. And in 2026, you're not just comparing yourself to peers you actually know. You're comparing yourself to the curated financial highlight reel of every person in your industry on LinkedIn. Every founder announcement, every promotion post, every excited to share that makes your position feel suddenly smaller. And here's what the research confirms. Social comparison doesn't just cause emotional distress, it directly influences spending behavior. When you feel behind, you spend to close the perceived gap. Nicer clothes, nicer car, nicer everything. Not because you wanted it, but because you needed to feel less behind. I knew someone like this. making good money, genuinely good money. But every time a colleague got something better, he found a reason to upgrade something. Not consciously, just this quiet, persistent, expensive way of keeping up with a race nobody announced. And he couldn't figure out why his money never stayed. Because he wasn't managing money, he was managing feelings, using money to regulate the anxiety that comparison created. And social media turned this from a background problem into a constant one. 72% of workers feel like they're falling behind with AI and technology. 89% check their phones within 30 seconds of waking up, which means before your brain is even fully conscious. You're already measuring yourself against everyone else. And that measurement has a financial cost that never appears on any budget. Here's the deepest layer. The one that took me the longest to understand, and the one nobody talks about when they talk about money and high earners. There are two ways to relate to money. Researchers call them income identity and wealth identity. Income identity is managing your income statement. What comes in, what goes out, living at the level your income allows. This is how most people, including most high earners, relate to money. Wealth identity is building your balance sheet, not what you earn, what you keep, what you build, what works for you while you sleep. And the disturbing thing about income identity is that it ties your entire sense of security to something completely outside your control. Your job, your employer's decisions, the economy, AI, market shifts, which means every threat to your income feels like a threat to your entire identity. Not just your bank account, who you are, and that's why economic anxiety cuts to the heart of self-esteem, as researchers put it. Because for men especially, income became identity so gradually they never noticed the replacement happening. 68% of men lack purpose outside of economic performance, which means when the income feels threatened, the self feels threatened. When the money feels unstable, the man feels unstable. And that's not a financial problem anymore. That's an identity crisis wearing a financial disguise. I want to be honest about something before I get here. There's no clean fix. No morning routine that solves the hedonic treadmill. No budget spreadsheet that addresses identity confusion. But the research does point towards something real, and I think it's worth saying carefully. The first thing is awareness of the treadmill itself. Lyubomirsky, Sheldon and Schkeider, 2005 research on sustainable happiness, found that people who understand hedonic adaptation can implement countermeasures, not eliminate it. Countermeasures, the biggest one? Deliberately not upgrading your lifestyle every time your income rises. Holding the baseline on purpose, consciously, against every social signal telling you to expand. It sounds simple, but try doing it when every upgrade feels reasonable at the new level. When the car makes sense now. When the apartment makes sense now. When everything makes sense now, because now is different. It's not different. The treadmill just moved. The second thing the research points to is separating income identity from wealth identity. Asking a different question than, what can I afford now? And starting to ask, what am I actually building? Not in a motivational sense, in a concrete, specific, uncomfortable sense. What percentage of this income is building something that doesn't require me to keep performing indefinitely? Because here's the Goldman Sachs reality. 5,000 to 10,000 jobs are eliminated every month by AI. The people most at risk are the ones whose entire financial security lives inside a single income stream attached to a single employer. The income identity that felt like safety is the exposure they didn't see coming. The third thing, and this is the one the data most consistently points toward, is addressing the emotional spending before addressing the money. Because 70 to 80% of unplanned spending comes from emotional fatigue. The financial problem is partly an emotional regulation problem, and you cannot budget your way out of an emotional regulation problem. You can track every dollar, build every spreadsheet, optimize every subscription, and still find yourself spending emotionally in ways the spreadsheet never captured. Because the spreadsheet doesn't account for the dinner you bought when the meeting went badly, the purchase you made when you felt behind, the thing you got when you needed to feel like yourself again. Those aren't budget failures. Those are signals. I want to come back to that man I mentioned at the beginning. 6 figures, good job, nice apartment, checking his account at 2 a.m. I read more about him, and what I found was something I did not expect. He eventually talked to someone. not a financial advisor, a therapist who specialized in exactly this: high performers with financial anxiety that made no rational sense. And what came out in those conversations had almost nothing to do with money. It had to do with a father who made him feel financially unsafe as a child, an environment where money was always scarce, always threatening, always one bad month from disaster. And that nervous system, that child's nervous system trained to expect financial threat, grew up into an adult body with a six-figure income and still running the same threat detection software from 1994. 78% of people constantly worried about their financial future across all income levels. That's not an income problem. That's an enormous number of people carrying childhood financial trauma into adult financial reality. I'm wondering why the adult money doesn't fix the childhood fear. Because it can't. The fear was never about the money. I want to end with something that isn't comfortable, because I think the comfortable version of this conversation is the one that gets forgotten. The question most people ask about money is, how do I get more? But the research points to a different question, one that's harder, more personal, more revealing. What am I actually trying to feel when I imagine having more? Safe, respected, free, enough? Because those feelings are not financial problems. They're not solved by income. The Hedonic Treadmill proves it. The 24% of millionaires with financial anxiety proves it. The 90% of high earners living paycheck to paycheck proves it. More money without answering that question just gives the fear a bigger house to live in. And the man I started with, the one checking his account at 2 a.m., eventually realized something that took him years to understand. He wasn't afraid of running out of money. He was afraid of running out of evidence that he was okay. And he'd been using money as that evidence. Every raise, temporary proof. Every upgrade, temporary proof. Every account balance, temporary proof that he was okay, that he was safe, that he was enough. And temporary proof requires constant renewal, which is why the fear never left. The money was never the thing he needed. He needed to know he was okay without the number. And that is the work no income bracket can do for you. 78% of people are walking around with that same quiet fear across every income level, every tax bracket, every salary range. You're not broken for feeling it. You're not ungrateful. You're not irresponsible. You're not failing at something everyone else is getting right. You're just someone whose nervous system learned to use money as evidence of safety in a world that keeps moving the goalposts. And the first step isn't a budget, it's a question. What am I actually trying to feel? Sit with that. Really sit with it. Because the answer is where the real work starts. If this felt uncomfortably accurate, subscribe to Shadow Protocol. Because this channel exists for exactly this, the conversation happening at 2 a.m. in your head, finally said out loud. Comment below, what does financial security actually feel like to you? Not the number, the feeling. Because I think most of us have never actually answered that question. And that might be exactly why the number never feels like enough. See you in the next one.